Alright, in this video, I want to talk about men versus women. Because I think this whole dichotomy between men and women is a depiction of God and mankind. That it has that same relationship. So how Satan divides men and women is the same way he ends up dividing you from God. Right? So through study and meditation upon the scriptures, I'm starting to see that the spiritual is the male, the masculine, and that the physical is the female, the feminine, right? As we see in the creation of man, where in Genesis chapter 2, it says Adam was formed out of the dust of the earth. So you see we have there a physical body being formed out of the clay of the earth there. And it says, then God breathed the spirit of life into him. So there you have the male entering into the female, and then there's conception. Then Adam becomes a living soul. When spirit and physicality come together, there's a creation of a child, the soul. And that's how mankind originally, not anymore, now you got to be born again, but originally was born in the image and likeness of God, where there's three aspects to you. Just like there's three aspects to God, not three different persons. Right? Adam wasn't made into three different persons. He had a body, he had a soul, and he had a spirit. Right? All three were him. They weren't three separate persons that made him up. That's the image and likeness of God. God has a body, a soul, and a spirit. But that's not the subject of this video. The subject of this video is men versus women. Now, there's a lot of things to say about this, and I'm not going to be able to say everything I really want to say and talk about this subject in this video. But I want to cover a couple of things. And I'm going to say that the issue actually starts with men. It actually does start with men. You see, men, they want to be able to do what they want with women. So this whole feminine movement about women not needing men and don't settle down when they're young and have children, but use their youthful years to fool around, that's what a lot of these shitty men want, right? They want to be able to mess around without any commitment with these women, and they don't care about what happens to them when they reach their 30s, and then other guys don't want to be with them other than for some casual relationship, just like they've been doing, because they don't want to marry them once they're 30 and not really going to settle down and have children, right? And maybe they already have a child or two, just an absent father there. They don't want that. They see a lot of these shitty men, they take advantage of that. They want this feminist movement because they get to mess around with the women and not have to marry them and commit to them, right? They get to fool around with them and use them. So, of course, it starts with the men. Because if the men require the women to behave modestly, right, to act like future wives, and to respect men in that way, and to respect themselves, they wouldn't be acting the way they're acting like we see in society, right? So I believe it does start with men and having some kind of self-control and not just out there for yourself and pleasure seeking, right? You know, it's not about you hooking up as much as you can to get another notch in your belt to prove what kind of a alpha male you are. That doesn't help anybody else. It doesn't help society. It just helps your ego and your animalistic nature. It doesn't really benefit anybody else. And we need to stop that. So as men, and I know men aren't really going to listen, especially the men that are able to just fool around as they want. They don't care what I have to say. But if things were to change between this division between men and women, then the men would have to control themselves and not just want to mess around with these girls that flaunt themselves and freely give themselves up. If they stop doing that, then the women would realize they can't act like that and get away with that. And when they get older and those kind of guys don't want to mess with them anymore, they would have the humility to realize, I shouldn't be shooting for these top guys that I am not going to be with, because all they wanted to do was sleep with you, and that is it. And you thought they wanted to do more. And that's because these men, they take advantage of those things. This whole feminazi thing. And then the women get mad that these men won't marry them. Well, that's on you, right? Yeah. And I also believe it starts with men because of fathers. A lot of fathers are not excited about having a daughter. And they don't teach their daughter about how to be a woman and how to find a good man by being that good example to their daughter. But not only that, having that relationship with their wife where they have the respect of their wife. And this is where it also comes down to women, where a lot of wives, a lot of mothers are very disrespectful and walk over their husbands. And then the husband kind of distances himself. He detaches himself from the family because he doesn't feel respected and loved by the family. So he just kind of is off. And then that harms the daughter, not having that connection to the father. And then she ends up becoming one of these women that are subject to these guys that don't give a shit, right? And part of the reasons why she's attracted to such things is because what she grew up with, her dad didn't give a shit, right? So she looks for the same kind of guy. And then she's super disrespectful to men because she saw that's how her mother was to her father. So then, as generations go on, this just becomes a bigger problem. And then it causes more of a divide, where it ends up men and women aren't coming together to become one. They are dividing and not trusting one another. They keep thinking one another is going to use each other and manipulate one another, and then they just kind of split apart. And this is what we actually see with what's going on with God and our relationship to God. Because women, men are the same way, want a powerful God, a powerful God who will stand up for them and protect them, right? And a lot of times, God doesn't do that. So you think that he's weak, he's not there, he doesn't care, and you start to build this image of him that isn't true. And it's the same thing with a woman with a man. The woman, he's not standing up for the woman, so she thinks that he's weak or cowardly or something, but maybe he just wants to see what kind of a woman she is, how she's going to respond, right? And that's exactly how we see God. God is the creator of all things, the sustainer of all things. He has all the power and all the wealth, but he comes to us through Jesus Christ. He comes to us through a black and white book, the Bible. And he comes to us humbly, saying, here I am. I want you to love me for me. I want you to respect me for me. Not because I have all the power and because I have all the money, because that wouldn't be respecting me. That would be respecting power. That would be respecting money. That would be respecting anything but me. I want you to get to know me and love and respect me. So God comes to us humbly, right? And a lot of guys, they will do the same thing with a woman. They won't come showing any kind of social status, any kind of wealth or power of any kind, just coming as a decent guy. But they'll be overlooked because naturally the woman wants something big and powerful to protect her and provide for her, right? So she's just dismissive of this guy who actually loves her or would love her and take care of her. But he actually wants that connection. But he's not going to get that because the woman is not going to give that unless she sees that it's an all-powerful God, right? And I keep intertwining these two things of man and God because the man is representing God in this and women are representing mankind in this. So I'm going to talk about women and mankind interchangeably, and I'm going to talk about men and God interchangeably, just because it's a metaphor. And I hope you're able to follow along with that. So I've always took a look at this to see the interesting dynamic between men and women. This feminist movement and even this MAGTOW, men go their own way, where they're sick and tired of dealing with women and they're just going to do their own thing, focus on themselves and dismiss women. They're not going to marry them, but if they end up attracting a woman, they will mess with her, but they're not going to commit to her because they don't see women as worth committing to, right? Because the woman just wants that guy because he's made something of himself. She loves his status. She loves his money, his power, right? She doesn't actually know him or care anything about him. She just wants what he has, right? So he's going to just use what she has, right? I want what you have. I don't care about you either. So both these men and women are just taking what they want from one another, but they don't truly want to get to know one another or care about one another, right? They just end up using each other. You know, they try at times to express some love to one another or to try to get love from one another, but there's always the trauma that's already happened, the fear and the doubts and the judging, right? Because if you're not perfect, all of a sudden you back off, right? I mean, there's all kinds of things that get in the way. You know, other people influencing, whispering in your ear, these kind of things, and yeah, there's all kinds of things. And then there's each side's insecurities and all this stuff. There's all kinds of stuff that get in the way. But ultimately, these things are what actually ruin our relationship with God, right? Because we don't want to just sit there and get to know Him, right? And love and respect Him. We just want Him to love us and come after us. We think that we are the prize, right? And it's the women. They think they are the prize. And that's actually not the case. Well, thinking about these things and learning my relationship to God, where He's playing the man and I'm playing the woman, and it's kind of weird. But, you eat some humble pie and you try to look at it from that perspective and you realize, I'm not a prize. I am not a prize at all. The only value I really have is the fact that God loves me. That's it. Outside of that, what value do I really have? I can't offer anything to God. Only thing I can offer to God is I can reciprocate what He gives me. That's it. So the ultimate prize is actually God. Because He is everything. He's life. He's the joy and the happiness. Right? He is everything that you want. He is it. Right? Father, husband, best friend, Savior, Redeemer, right? He's everything. Doctor, counselor, provider, protector. He's everything you want and need. The issue is that He's not going to have that relationship with you unless you actually want to get to know Him. Like God talks about David, that David was a man after His own heart, where David, the king of Israel, wanted to know God. Right? David was a shepherd at this time. And he was the youngest of his family, and he was kind of looked down upon. He really just wanted to get to know God. He wasn't looking for some kind of power, prosperity, anything. He just wanted God. But there's not really any women that just want their man. They want to get to know him and will suffer with their man through some rough times, right? They won't do that. Even if it looks like their whole life is going to be a struggle to be poor with their man, they don't want that because they don't truly love and respect the man. They think the man is just there to protect and provide, and if they think they can do better, they'll go after that. The same thing with men. God, why isn't He doing all these things for me? Well, if I go pray to Satan or to Allah or some Buddhist Hindu deity or some other, pagan, heathen, witchcraft, whatever kind of thing, you go do some rituals and prayers to their gods, they get answers and responses. They get protected and provided. This is better, right? I'm going to go after these things. But those gods don't love you. They don't care for you. They're just going to use you, and you end up going to be thrown into hell because they don't give two shits about you. Right? They're doing these things for you to draw you away from the one who truly loves you and cares about you, to use you up, and then to destroy your self-esteem and self-worth, so that you won't ever come to the true God who actually does love you. Right? And the same, just like men will do this for, gods that will provide them with all these things that they want, women do the exact same thing with men. They look at them as their God, their provider and protector, and they don't actually care to know them. Just like, oh, this one, he'll provide me with better stuff. This one will provide me with even better stuff. All right, I'm going after this one that provides a certain amount of protection, but also a certain amount of provisions. This one I think is the best. I'm going to go with this one. Oh, but this one has even a better one later on. Well, I'm either going to try to get mine to be more like them or better than them to compete, or I'll just leave this chump and try to get that one. Right? The monkey branch. And it's the same thing what men do with gods and spiritual entities. And if they think, well, there isn't a God that will help me, then they'll make themselves a God and then try to use their own intellect and scheming and hustling and so-called science and all this stuff to better themselves, provide for themselves. And that's exactly what a lot of women would do. All these men are shit. I don't need a man. I'll do it all on my own. Right? So you can see the same comparisons. And the same way Satan has cut women off from men, it's the same way he cuts us off from God. Now, with that being said, I did have some notes that I thought were interesting. That this this guy was bringing out about women. I thought was interesting. He was saying, women when they're younger, it's like they have a split personality. They want to be the housewife, but eventually. Right now, though, they want to be the hoe. But they think it's like two different people, but it's not. They're the same person. So when they're younger and they're acting like the hoe, and then later on they want to get married, and that guy wants to know about their past, they don't think it's fair. Like, I'm not that person anymore, right? I should be judged by who I am right now. But that's not how it works. Men aren't going to judge you like that. You want to be judged like that, but that doesn't matter how you want to be judged, right? And you're going to have to just accept that. It's the same thing with men, right? You might have done some sins in your younger life, and you think, well, I'm a better man now. I should be judged by what I am now and who I am now. But then when you're judged by God, he's going to look at everything and be like, look at all these things. Just because you are different now doesn't wash away what you have done, right? I don't know what makes you think that you changing now affects the past and washes away the past. That's not how it works. You changing now only starts to affect the present and starts to affect the future, but it doesn't wash away the past. And the past is something you're going to have to deal with. And a lot of men don't want to deal with this, just like the women don't want to deal with their past. All right? So I thought that was interesting when he was saying that. Like, they don't want to be judged by the past. They act like it was a different person. And I was like, men think that's funny. And it's like, well, you do the same thing when it comes to God. That was a different person. I've grown up. I should be judged by me right now. But that's another thing. The woman right now, she's not perfect, right? She doesn't want to be the hoe anymore. She wants to be the housewife. But she's not perfect, right? So even if she's judged as the housewife, and you forget about her past, it ain't as if she's passed with flying colors, right? Especially since a housewife would be having children, and the older that you get, the less children you can even have, right? And then it's hard to take care of children the older you get as well. So you kind of lose out on a lot of things there. And it's the same thing with a man there, right? Oh, in my youth, I did whatever I wanted, but now I'm going to go serve God. And it's like, yeah, but now you don't have that same strength and the vigor, and you're not full of piss and vinegar anymore, right? You don't have that same energy and oomph to you. You gave all that oomph to yourself for your glory days, to do whatever you wanted to do, whatever it was, and now you want to come to God. And it's like, well, even if you start serving Him and everything, you're not perfect, right? So you need to understand the same way you're viewing women is the same way God is viewing you as a man. That's why we're told in the scriptures that the head of man is Christ, not the church, not your pastor or priest. The head of every man is Christ. And that the head of the woman is the man, whether it's her father or her husband, right? So in that same relationship that the woman is under the man is the same way the man is under God. So when you see the woman act in a certain way towards you, you need to self-reflect and be like, how am I doing this with God? Or am I doing this with God? Right? The way you want your wife to be to you, where you want her to be loyal and affectionate and not cause you problems, to destroy your peace and to agitate you and to constantly be testing you and to constantly be tempting you, right? You don't want her to be doing that. And you want her to stick by your side and to suffer with you, to be willing to go through hell and high water with you. Well, God wants you to do that with Him. So if you're upset that a woman won't do that with you, are you willing to do that with God? And then as a man, why not just be single? And you see how you want women to be, they're not being that way? Then put God in that place and you be that for God. And a woman, no man wants to be that man for you. Dedicate yourself to God then. You don't need a wife, you don't need a husband. Focus on God. Give your life over to Jesus. And this other thing he said that I thought was interesting is that like a man would be loyal to a woman because of principalities, morality, uh, his own sense of being a man. Like, this is my woman, through thick or thin. So his loyalty would be to her, even if his feelings fade. He's like, this is still my wife. I still got to provide and protect, right? So even if he starts to lose that feeling of love for her, he still has a loyalty, if he has loyalty. Not all men have this. This is just in general. We're saying that women are actually loyal to their feelings. So if they feel that they love you, and they get that feeling of love from you, then they will be ride or die, right? They will even help you take someone out and bury the body, because they are going to be in love with you because of that feeling, right? That feeling. They're loyal to the feeling. But if they stop feeling that feeling for you, all of a sudden, the love is gone. They're not loyal to you anymore because they don't have that feeling, right? If they don't feel the love, they're not going to choose it. And that's where men and women are different in a lot of ways. Both can do the same thing. Like, a man can follow his feeling about loving a woman, and a woman can choose to love a man in spite of himself. But generally, it's the man who will choose to love the woman in spite of her red flags and her flaws, her past, and this and that and the other thing, right? Because love is ultimately a choice. Like, in spite of these things, I'm going to love you even though I don't have this feeling, right? I don't have a feeling of butterflies or what have you. But I'm going to choose to love you, right? But the woman, she's like, I'm not going to choose this guy, right? Especially if he's not in a good place in his life. She's not going to choose it because she doesn't have the feeling. She's only going to follow the feeling. And this is a generalization. Like I said, both can do the opposites. But generally, this is how it is. Because ultimately, love is a choice, not a feeling. Because you can feel feelings for people who are liars and pretenders, right? They're scamming you to pretend that they care about you, whether they're a politician, a religious leader, a potential spouse. They can pretend to get something out of you. right? But you feel love for them, but it's not real. They're being fake. You're loving an imagination. You're like an actor playing a role. They're not really that person. You're falling in love with what they're portraying on the screen, in the show, in the play, whatever it may be, right? But that's not real. It's just a feeling. To truly love somebody, you have to choose to love them, right? And sometimes you might actually feel angry towards them. And this is easier done with, I guess, a child. You better understand love is where a child, you can be very upset with a child, especially if it's your child, and you still love them. You still choose to love them in spite of you feeling like kicking them across the room, right? But you love them anyway, and you choose to love them, right? We don't usually do this with our spouses, right? With our wives and our husbands. We won't choose to love them when we feel like kicking them across the room. We're either going to kick them across the room or stay away from them. But we're not going to choose to love them, right? But ultimately, that's what love really is. It's a choice, not a feeling. Now, there may be feelings here and there of coming from the love, because when you choose to love somebody, the feelings can grow and it can come and go, right? But somebody could hate your guts and you don't even really know them, right? Especially when you're younger, you just find somebody, oh, he's really handsome, she's really beautiful, and you got all these feelings about, oh, you like being around them. You don't even know them, yet you have these feelings. That should show you right there that it's not love. You got this imagination of who that person is based on your basically physical attraction to them. But anyway, that is that for this video. Thanks for watching. I hope you think about these things. I hope you learned about something about these things. I think I might do some more about the dynamics between men and women, because I think they better help us understand our relationship with God and the fact that God has feelings. You know how a lot of women just don't seem to think that men have feelings, and it doesn't matter that they're killing themselves at higher rates, way higher rates than women. Like it's their fault. Yet uh, we do the same thing with God, as if He doesn't feel. But He made us in His image and likeness, where when we feel things, we're just getting a taste of how He feels, where He feels very deeply, right? Matter of fact, I think men may feel more deeply than women. They just don't express it. And since we don't express it, they think that we don't feel it, right? And, that's one of the burdens of being a man, right? There's perks and benefits about being a man, but there's also some burdens and cons about it as well. So, if you see that I'm giving out some truth here, helping out people with this kind of thing, fighting that good fight that's done with words to win the hearts and minds of people, to save souls in this spiritual fight that's not a physical fight done with fisticuffs, please support watching all the way through like you just did. Help support, that's good enough, but you can take a moment to just pray that I keep going, that God reveals Himself to me and gives me boldness to keep going strong, to stand up against all odds and all opposition. Just saying amen to this is beneficial, but if you can, interact in the comment section in one way or another. Just leaving a comment to say, hey, watch the video, right? That helps with the algorithm. Interacting with other people, starting conversations helps as well. Giving a thumbs up, subscribing, hitting that bell icon to see other videos really helps support the channel. And I'm seeing if God's going to support me by the gospel here. I'm doing this ministry here. If it's truly of God, He's going to support me. So if you see that that's what's going on, support me. And if you can and you're able, you can support financially. I think I have 4 different ways you can do so on the info box below. That will be greatly appreciated so I can keep this ministry going. Because right now, today's a good day, but who knows what tomorrow will bring. So your support will be greatly appreciated so that this can keep going. Hopefully long enough until Jesus comes gets us, which looks like it's soon. But it's been looking like it's soon for a while. So I don't know, you take that with a grain of salt, I guess, right? So, with all that being said, thanks for watching, and take care.